Hi everyone and welcome to week 7 of CAT125R. This week's introduction video focuses on intellectual property. As I'm sure you're all very well aware, you are presenting your expertise speeches in section this week. Congratulations, it's always a huge accomplishment to complete a public presentation, and I've really enjoyed reading your materials that you've posted related to the assignment on Piazza and visiting some of you in section as you've talked about the assignment. There's some really interesting topics floating around out there, and I'm sure you all have enjoyed hearing one another's presentations as well. This week also marks a shift in the course as you begin working on your final assignment for the quarter, which is the collaborative curation project. And this shift is, the main part of this shift is that now you're taking on the role of active researcher. In this week's lecture videos, you're going to hear from Professor Losh, who will give you a general overview of copyright history in the US and intellectual property history as well. You'll also be thinking about what might be the hazards of collective authorship. So you'll be thinking about the cons of certain kinds of collaborative activities. For example, we know that appropriating intellectual property without proper citation techniques is a plagiaristic activity, and that is, of course, problematic. Like in this example of a Turnitin.com report, where a student engaged in patch writing, which means that he or she cut and pasted materials from sources without proper citation and without any sort of analysis or commentary of their own. But we'll also be thinking about some of the potential benefits of collective authorship as you will be engaging in collective authorship for the final project of the course. I like this quotation from Sir Isaac Newton, who says, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants." And what he's saying here is that his own science benefited from the science that came before him. It's not just about individual intellectual property, but how intellectual property can be gathered and built upon to create new and innovative research. We'll also be thinking about the ethics of citation. Your final assignment in the course asks you to work together in groups to develop a researched response to a question you develop under a bigger heading, a bigger umbrella of the question of what is intellectual property in the age of the internet. And in order to execute that project, you'll be using a platform called Storify. One thing that's advantageous about Storify is that built into it is a citation method. So you identify sources through Storify and drag and drop those sources into your Storify story. So we'll be thinking a lot about the ethics of citation in your lecture videos this week, and you'll be practicing some of those citation methods by virtue of using Storify. Storify is really designed to be effective in working closely together with social media platforms like YouTube, Twitter, blogs, Facebook. And you can put a variety of types of sources into your Storify story, though we do encourage you to include scholarly research as well in your stories. And you can show, what Storify then allows you to do is to show how there might be a relationship or conversation between more popular sources and scholarly sources, or if that conversation doesn't already exist, you can help forge it through pulling these sources together, curating them into your project, and providing commentary that shows your audience how these sources are in conversation or can be in conversation with one another. So this project is asking you to do more, though, than just pull a bunch of sources together. We're using this term collaborative curation to describe the assignment. And what that means when we're asking you to curate, part of what that means is has to do with the selection process. So it's not a random selection of sources that have something to do with the topic you've chosen. Instead, You're carefully culling through all the sources that are out there in order to find those that help answer your question most effectively. And you're pulling them together and arranging them in such a way that the answer to your question becomes apparent to your audience. Another part of this curation project has to do with the text that you develop in conjunction with the sources. So it's not just a list of sources or a list of links. You write an introductory text, and you write text for each source that contextualizes that source, introduces it to your audience, and most importantly, shows how it relates to the other sources in your Storify story. So as we said earlier, your projects for the final project will be related to intellectual property in the age of the internet. And the preparatory assignments that you're going to be doing for this project with the Piazza posts and the draft are really designed to help you focus down from this big question, what is intellectual property in the age of the internet, into something more narrow, more specific. Because what will happen, I know it might seem like having a big question will give you more to say, but in fact the opposite really is true. When you have a more specific question, it gives you a more interesting entrance into the research process and will allow you to say something more concrete and more compelling for your audience. So I'm going to leave the video a bit short this week and give you time to make sure that you read the prompt for the collaborative curation assignment and watch the video that's linked in that prompt that gives you an overview of how to use the Storify platform. Good luck, and I'll see you on Piazza.